لن نرى.
We will not leave. We will not leave. We will not leave. Palestine is our homeland. It is the land of our fathers, our grandfathers. It will remain ours. And if anyone were to leave, it would be the occupying usurpers. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Mr. Philemon Yang, President of the General Assembly of the United Nations. Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, heads and members of delegations, esteemed guests, peace and God's blessings be upon you all. I come to you today as my people, and for almost a year now, are subjected to one of the most heinous crimes of our era. It is a crime of a full-scale war, of genocide, that Israel is perpetrating. Israel, the occupying state. A crime that so far has killed more than 40,000 martyrs in Gaza alone, and thousands remain under the rubble. A crime that has injured more than 100,000 others to this day, and matters are getting worse. Hundreds of Palestinian families have been annihilated. Entire family names have been wiped out of the civil record. More than 100 families have been completely wiped out of the civil record. They no longer exist. Thousands have died because of the spread of disease and epidemics and the shortages in medicine and water. Moreover, more than 2 million Palestinians in Gaza have left their homes multiple times in search of safety and fleeing the systemic operations that the Israeli occupying army is perpetrating. And as this war of aggression continues, dozens are being killed every day, and double that amount is being injured amongst our bereft people in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank and in Jerusalem. I'm not here to respond to the lies of the Israeli Prime Minister, lies that he said in his speech before the U.S. Congress in July, where he claimed that his army does not kill innocent civilians in Gaza. I ask you by God, who is it then that killed more than 15,000 children of the 40,000, and an equal number of women and elderly persons from our people? And who is it then that is continuing to kill them? I ask you to answer me by God. Stop this crime. Stop it now. Stop killing children and women. Stop the genocide. Stop sending weapons to Israel. This madness cannot continue. The entire world is responsible for what is happening to our people in Gaza and the West Bank. The West Bank that is under a daily and continuous Israeli aggression. It is under a vicious settlement activity. They're building everywhere in Palestine, as if all of Palestine is theirs. It is subjected to the terrorism of gangs of settlers under the patronage and support of the Israeli government and the occupying army, which destroys hundreds of houses in the lands of Palestine, not to mention what our eternal capital, Al-Quds, is being subjected to in terms of campaigns to change its nature, to Judaize it, and to aggress it and its holy sites and landmarks, to change its historic and legal status. We've recently heard a terrorist Israeli minister calling for building a temple in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. We must condemn and stop this reckless minister and those like him who want to set fire, a fire of religious conflict and strife that will burn everything in its way. The Aqsa Mosque and its surroundings, ladies and gentlemen, is the exclusive property of Muslims. This has been endorsed by a resolution taken by the League of Nations in 1930. This was a resolution by the League of Nations, and we will accept nothing else regardless of the circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, we have repeatedly warned here in the General Assembly that the situation in the occupied land of the State of Palestine warns of an explosion, and this explosion has happened. It happened on October 7th of last year and afterwards. And from the very first day, I stressed the need to immediately stop the war. I condemned the killing of civilians regardless of who they are and regardless of what side they were on or any people they were from. I demanded the release of prisoners and those detained by both sides. There is no need to detain women, children, and the elderly. We've said this repeatedly. To anyone who has those people detained, I called for immediately going to the negotiations table to implement the two-state solution based on international resolutions. But instead of heeding the voice of reason, the Israeli government took advantage of what happened to launch an all-out war of genocide against Gaza. It committed and continues to commit war crimes as acknowledged by the international community. They're called war crimes. Israel today is now launching a new aggression on the brotherly Lebanese people. The Lebanese people are now being subjected to a war of genocide. And Israel must stop the war in Lebanon and in Palestine. We condemn this aggression and we demand that it stops immediately. Israel has reoccupied the Gaza Strip in its entirety, and it has destroyed it almost entirely, so that Gaza is no longer fit for life. Most homes have been destroyed. The same applies to most buildings, health facilities, educational facilities, economic buildings, roads, churches, mosques, water plants, electric plants, and sanitation plants. Anybody who goes to Gaza who'd known it before would not recognize it anymore. It's no longer there. 75% of everything in Gaza has been fully destroyed. If Israel thinks that it would get away from being held accountable and punished for these crimes, then it is delusional. The international community must immediately impose sanctions on Israel. The massacres, the crimes, the genocide that Israel has been perpetrating against our people since its inception in 1948 to this very day will not go unpunished. There is no statute of limitations. Rights will never be lost as long as there are those who demand them. And despite our repeated calls and demands, the world has not succeeded in obliging Israel, this transient state, to stop this war of genocide and its war crimes against innocent civilian residents. We regret that the U.S. administration, the democracy of the world, the largest democracy in the world, obstructed 3 times draft resolutions in the Security Council demanding Israel to observe a ceasefire. The U.S. alone stood and said, no, the fighting is going to continue. It did this by using the veto. And added to that, it furnished Israel with the deadly weapons that it used to kill thousands of innocent civilians, children and women. And this further encouraged Israel to continue its aggression. As long as the U.S. is supporting it, then why not keep going? Since it's already an aggressing state. This is the United States, the very country that was the only member in the Security Council that voted against granting the state of Palestine full membership in the UN. We don't deserve membership in the eyes of America, so they use the veto against it. I don't understand how the United States could insist on opposing our people, insist on depriving us of our legitimate rights to freedom and independence, as is the right of the rest of the countries, 194 countries, and we are no less than them. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel, which refuses to implement United Nations resolutions, does not deserve to be a member in this international organization. Israel, whose permanent representative in this organization says that the very building of the United Nations, and he said that this building must be removed. This building that we are sitting in right now, it must be wiped off the face of the earth. This country does not deserve to be a member in this organization. It is, from the very beginning, it has from the very beginning not fulfilled the conditions for membership. Because in 1949, when it submitted its membership application to the UN imposed two conditions. First, to accept and implement Resolution 181 and Resolution 194. Without implementing these two conditions, you will not be granted membership in the United Nations. Moshe Sharet, the foreign minister at the time, wrote a pledge. You will see it. A pledge, a written pledge, that he and Israel are committed to the implementation of those resolutions. And since 1949 to this very day, nothing has happened. We are going to submit a request, an application to the General Assembly on this matter. And as I said, if you return, then we will return. If they do not step back, then we will do more. I take this opportunity to commend the member states of the United Nations that voted with more than a two-thirds majority in favor of the draft resolution submitted by the State of Palestine, supported by a large number of friendly and sisterly countries, to adopt the ICJ's historic advisory opinion issued on the 19th of July 2024 to end the illegal Israeli occupation of the State of Palestine in a period of 12 months. For the very first time, there is a specific time frame. We demand the implementation of this particular requirement, including an immediate cessation of annexation and settlement activities, dismantling of existing settlements, and evacuating settlers from Palestinian territories. There's 600,000 settlers, and they're living on our land. Why don't they go back to their homes? We must give reparations to Palestinians and for damages that were a result of the unlawful policies and the practices of the occupation, and many other such issues that were mentioned in the ICJ's advisory opinion. We want what the ICJ stated and what the entire world accepted in the General Assembly with a vast majority that far exceeds a two-thirds majority. And Israel must be made to implement it. We rely on this resolution, which is the embodiment of international will and the principles of international law and the mechanisms that were adopted in this regard to guarantee implementation. We hope that this resolution would be implemented. Of the 1,000 resolutions taken on the Palestinian people since 1948 until this very day, and not a single one has been implemented yet. Ladies and gentlemen, today I feel very grateful as well, as I see this large, great shift in the positions of member states in the United Nations as they support Palestinians' rights to an independent state that is recognized and that deserves full membership in this organization, as is the case with the rest of the countries in the world that love freedom and peace. In the name of the Palestinian people, I thank you for this support. I thank you for your support of what is right, of justice, to achieve peace in our region. I call upon you to apply the laws of international law according to responsibilities and sovereignty. We don't ask you for more than you can do. We ask every state to give us our support within the realm of its responsibility and sovereignty. I also express our gratitude and appreciation for the demonstrations that spoke against the genocide in Gaza and that supported Palestinian rights that have been taking place throughout the world, including the American people. And I acknowledge the American people are marching in the streets in these demonstrations, and we are grateful to them. We appreciate what is happening in European countries and the noble supporters that come to Palestine, risking their lives as Israelis attack them. And here, I would like to make special mention of the Turkish-American martyr Aisha Noor, killed by the occupation army in cold blood. I say to those, the Palestinian people will not forget your honorable stand. We will remember you proudly when the occupation is eliminated and when our people enjoy freedom and independence. Ladies and gentlemen, recently there was much talk about the next day, the day after. What shall we do on the day after? What is our policy for the day after? And I say to you, the day after the end of the war in the Gaza Strip, I take this opportunity today to give you our view of what is needed immediately and on the day after the war ends. This is our proposal. We propose it to you. You can accept it, you can change it, you can amend it. We are ready for all that. First of all, a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the military aggressions and attacks by terrorist settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Second, humanitarian aid must be delivered urgently in an organized manner and in sufficient quantities, because there's nothing in Gaza and they need everything. This humanitarian aid must be delivered throughout Gaza. Third, a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. We refuse the establishment of buffer zones or taking any part from Gaza. Gaza is only 7 kilometers by 40, and Israel wants to cut it up. It wants a piece here and a piece there, and we will not allow a single centimeter of Gaza to be taken. We demand that we stop the forced displacement inside the Gaza Strip or outside the Gaza Strip. We demand the return of those displaced to their homes or to have housing provided to them. Netanyahu wants in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip people to be displaced, to be evacuated to Egypt and to Jordan. We refused. The Jordanian and Egyptian governments, and I thank them for this, said we will not allow the displacement of any Palestinians and eviction of the Palestinians from their lands. Fourth, we demand the protection of UNRWA and humanitarian organizations from Israel's actions and to provide political and financial support to these organizations so that they can perform their role and offer their services to the Palestinian refugees until they return home. UNRWA was established to do its job until the refugees return. And every day Israel finds an excuse to convince others that UNRWA's work must be ended. Fifth, we demand international protection for the Palestinians on the lands of their occupied land. We want protection. We are not fighting Israel. We cannot fight Israel. And we don't want to fight. But we want protection. We want our children, our women, our families to be protected internationally. Sixth, Palestine, the state of Palestine must shoulder its responsibilities in the Gaza Strip and impose its full mandate on it and jurisdiction on it, including the border checkpoints, especially the Rafah international border between Egypt and Palestine, as part of a comprehensive plan. This has existed before and it must return to the way it was. Seventh, and within the context of a comprehensive national reform process. This is a process that we're undertaking, and most countries have reviewed it, supported it, confirmed it, and thanked the Palestinian government for it. And hopefully we will continue with this process till the very end. In terms of this process, we will reconstruct our infrastructure and state institutions destroyed by Israel. We will revive the economy and establish sustainable development and rebuild the Gaza Strip. And we will hold the state of Israel fully responsible. Eighth, the authority of the state of Palestine and the Palestinian government and the PLO, the legitimate and sole representative of the Palestinian people, will have authority on all Palestinian territories in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and Eastern Jerusalem, as has been stipulated for us by international law. We are not asking for more, but we will not accept any less. The West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and the Eastern Jerusalem. We will not ask for more, but we will not accept any less. We will hold general elections. We're ready to hold the elections. We've been ready in the past, but Israel refused to allow us to hold these elections in Jerusalem. But if this were to happen, we're ready to hold these elections and to form a Palestinian government in accordance with the results of these elections. Ninth, we will continue to mobilize the largest possible international support so that the state of Palestine can achieve full membership in the United Nations as soon as possible. What do we lack to be sitting amongst you? What do we lack to be on the same footing as 194 official member states in the United Nations? We have the land, we have the authority, we have the people, we have the culture, we have the knowledge, we have everything that we need. We ask you to help us. 10th, the full implementation of the General Assembly resolution on the advisory opinion that we mentioned, issued by the International Court of Justice in a manner that would lead to the end of the occupation in 12 months, as stipulated by the resolution, as set by the advisory opinion. Number 11, hold an international peace conference under the auspices of the United Nations within a year to apply the two-state solution. So we hold this international conference so that we would resolve all the problems that remain between us and Israel. By the way, we recognize the state of Israel, but Israel doesn't recognize us. We want a solution that would protect both countries, the state of Palestine and the state of Israel, so that they can coexist in peace, stability, and security. Number 12, to adopt international peacekeeping forces by virtue of a Security Council resolution between the states of Palestine and Israel to guarantee the security of both countries. We call for guaranteeing the security of both countries. These are the elements of our vision for the day after, for today and for the day after the war ends, in the state of Palestine in general. And I call upon you to adopt this plan and to provide all the necessary means to guarantee its success. Ladies and gentlemen, a few weeks ago, I declared that I've decided to lead a Palestinian delegation to the Gaza Strip so that we can stand by our people who have been exhausted by the Israeli genocide war. I call upon you to support this decision by issuing a United Nations resolution by the United Nations here, by pressuring the occupying government so that it would not obstruct this effort. And here I welcome any state, any party that wants to join us in this visit. We'll be happy to go with you to Gaza so that we could all see the tragedies that are taking place. I salute our heroic people that are sacrificing all that is precious for Palestine. In the Gaza of sacrifice, in the West Bank of solidarity, of Al-Quds, which is our crown jewel and our capital. We salute our people in the diaspora, in the refugee camps, to our brave prisoners in Israeli prisons. 6,000 prisoners. Israel arrests whoever it wants. Those prisoners whose dignity is being violated every day. Palestine will be free. It will be free despite anyone who objects to that. Our people will live on the land of their fathers and grandfathers as they have done for more than 6,000 years. They will continue their legitimate struggle for independence. The occupation will end. God's and peace blessings be upon you.